Welcome to another episode of our new podcast series, Masters of Product Management. Today we have with us Shailendra Jha, who's been in product teams at Make My Trip, Nearbuy, Magic Bricks, and right now he's the vice president of product at a used car marketplace called Spinny. They're doing really well, a recent unicorn as well. We'll discuss lots of things around product management, but we'll focus on two very interesting concepts. First, we'll talk about various kinds of product managers out there, right? There is product marketing management, there is product owner, there are product managers who focus on analytics. So we'll focus on various kinds of product managers, and we'll also talk about how to crack interviews for each of these roles. It's going to be a very exciting podcast. This is specifically made for people who are aspiring product managers who come from tech as well as non-tech domains. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's welcome Shailendra. Thanks for coming today, Shailendra.
Thank you so much.
Excited to have you.
Equally excited.
Is this your first podcast?
No, I've done multiple before, but mostly were solo. This is my first doing like an interaction with somebody.
Okay. What was your first ever podcast about?
It was about storytelling in product management.
Okay. Tell me more.
So I believe product managers are also storytellers because we have to sell a vision and we have to rally around and make people follow a certain path. Storytelling is actually the best way to do it. So I've been a storyteller throughout my life, and I thought, why don't we mix storytelling and product management into a concept? And so that was the idea of that podcast.
I think we're going to explore that in a little bit more detail.
Sure.
For sure, because I think that's a great point that you made.
Yeah.
But to begin with, first I'd love for our audience to get to know you better. So can you take us through your journey? And you can start right at the beginning, how you sort of grew up.
Yeah.
And lead us till today, now that you're in product management. How did that entire sort of game
Sure. As I said,
unfold?
I consider myself as a storyteller, so let me tell you a story.
Okay.
I was born and brought up in a very small town near Ranchi in Jharkhand. And growing up, I think I was not very sure whether I am made out for mathematics or, the literature side of things. Because my father was a teacher of maths and physics. So you can say that maths and numbers, these things were in my DNA, in my blood. But I also developed this knack of writing and reading a lot of stories. And at that point in time, of course, there was no internet or anything. So I could just read whatever was there. So whether it was newspaper or Manorama or Sarita, which was like, I was told not to read because those things are not supposed to be read by children. But I was like 7, 8, 10 years and, I started reading a lot. Prem Chand and stuff, which I could not even understand much, but I just had this knack
This
of
is in Hindi.
mostly in Hindi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I started writing also because I thought if I'm reading and I'm liking this and I appreciate whatever is written, maybe people will also appreciate what I'm writing. And I started writing. And my mom was my first listener, viewer. And whenever I used to write, I used to just tell her.
And what would you write? Would this be like poems or stories?
Yeah, mostly poems.
Acha, mostly
Yeah.
poems. Okay.
In fact, till date, I would have written more than 100 odd poems, mostly in Hindi.
Okay.
In fact, entirely in Hindi. I haven't written a poem in English at all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The only fiction piece which I have written is actually a story book which I've published recently on Amazon. It's called A Packet of Lays.
Okay.
And that is in English. I somehow have this I'm more comfortable writing poems in Hindi. And when it comes to prose, like writing more long form, it is in English. I don't know the reason, but that's how it is.
So after a childhood in literature,
Yeah.
why did you end up doing engineering?
See, I think as most of the people who grow up in Bihar and UP, that side of place, they have this inclination to become an IAS officer. And I too had some inclination. My parents actually wanted me to become one. And actually entering into engineering was more because of the reason that I wanted to get into UPSC and crack civil services. Because engineers apparently had a better chance of cracking UPSC. At least that was a thought with which I went into
That was the assumption back in the
with
day.
engineering. But when I entered into engineering and I realized there are so many other things which are also possible, and I then started moving more towards the corporate side of things and more towards business and stuff than towards civil services, which was pure administration. And in fact, but I look back now, I think whatever has happened, as people say, right, जो होता है अच्छे के लिए होता है, right? But it has actually panned out well for me because
The dots have connected.
dots have connected. Because I was speaking about my childhood days with English and maths, two almost diametrically opposite ends. And the way I think is, I have very orthogonal tastes. So I'm like, even in my role as a product manager, that is actually helping me a lot because
What's orthogonal?
so at 90 degrees. So
Okay.
basically what I have to do is not just be very creative about design, communication, being more empathetic towards the users, which is more the right side of brain allows you to do, whereas the left side of brain, which is more analytical and numbers and technology, product management is actually an amalgamation of both. And I think I find myself amazingly lucky to have landed in this function, which was when I joined product management at MMT right out of ISB. I think I would have been one of the only 100 odd product managers in the country, probably.
Yeah.
Because that was like so nascent, still is nascent, I would say. Although it's still trying to.
We get to MMT, but let's rewind back to now your engineering days.
Yes.
So where did you study engineering? What was that experience like?
So
what branch of engineering did you do?
Yeah,
How did
yeah.
you choose that?
I did engineering in information technology from NSIT, Delhi University.
Is that just a fancier word for computer science?
Yes, I think so. Although they had a computer science section also, but then they introduced a new function called information technology. Although, thankfully, I think because it was a newer course, so the curriculum and everything was more latent and more updated than the core computer science.
Got it.
So it kind of helped me in that sense. And I did from NSIT, as I said, in Delhi. And after that, I wanted to get into, I started working for a company called Computer Science Corporation into coding like a software engineer typically. And
Did you enjoy that?
no.
Okay.
So
Were you good at it?
I was good at it. But the point is, and I'll tell you a story again. This happened one day that, I was actually given to fix a piece of code, and it took almost 2-3 months because I was working for a huge multinational company. The software was like a legacy code, and it actually took me 2-3 months to complete that particular bug fix. And when I did that, and I spoke to my supervisors and the client supervisor, like, so what is the impact which it has created? Like, what happened after I've done this? Nobody had a clue that what would happen if you have done this. And I was not very happy about this. So my manager called me and said that the fact that you don't enjoy, you enjoy doing this, but you also are very curious about what is the impact it is going to create, etc. You're more cut out for a business analyst kind of a job, because that point he did not also understand what a product manager could do. But he said maybe business analyst is more suitable for your kind of a.
So when you were in your undergrad, you thought, of course, engineering is
Yeah.
a tech job or a computer
Exactly.
science job,
Yeah.
or a coding job is obviously the next logical step.
Yeah.
But while you were an engineer, while you were at computer science,
IT.
no, sorry, what was the company called?
Computer
Science
Science Corporation.
CSC.
SCSC,
Correct.
yes.
Did you think that you wanted to become a product manager? Was that part of the?
I had no idea what product management is. So, of course, if you don't even know what that role is, you cannot aspire to become that.
So as an engineer, you had no idea what
no
product
idea.
management is.
No idea.
Got it.
But at the same time, in parallel, I was also doing, you can say now in today's parlance, a startup. At that point in time, it was just a side activity.
Right.
We actually created a website called chotanarad.com and
Chota Narad.
Chota Narad. It was actually about campus corporate connect. So essentially, we believe that a lot of the engineers who are coming out are not directly employable. So how do we bridge that gap? So it was like mix of Glassdoor plus LinkedIn plus a lot of these things. But
got
of
it.
course, the product market fit. Now I know that
No,
term
that term.
exists. That point in time, I was like, okay, we're just trying very hard, like bootstrapping and a couple of friends. But in hindsight, when I look at that, what I was doing there was product management. I was understanding that there is a need from a user perspective as well as from the corporate perspective. So there are two-sided network. I could understand these things. And how do you generate content? How do you monetize this? And that to do it through technology and through design. I was talking to users a lot, etc. So everything I was doing was product
Is
management.
this something you were doing in your free time?
Yes, while I was working full time also, so over the weekends, and I'm very sure if I would have if that would have happened today, I would have definitely done it full time and raised a lot of capital and probably do it full time. But that point we were not very sure, and plus I had not done my MBA. I somehow had this feeling, which I think was misplaced, that if I don't do an MBA, my business understanding or other things might come handy, become a handicap in me becoming a full-fledged entrepreneur or doing a
Got it.
business.
So you started your MBA journey thinking that you'll probably wanted to become a entrepreneur. Got it.
And that is how I entered ISB. But when I went there, I spoke to a lot of people. There were product managers, my alums from Google and Yahoo, etc. And they told me that this is a new function which is coming up. This is what we do. This is actually a cross section between customer, technology, and business, and you sit right at the center. So if you Google these days product management, that's the first Venn diagram which sort of comes with the most popular
one. You said 3: customers,
business, and technology.
Yeah,
and you sit right at the center. So you have to understand business, of course, because that is what you do. But you have to also understand technology and be very empathetic towards customers, because you are representing customers in an organization. That's your role.
Got it. So while you were doing your MBA, your alums told you, listen, there is this new domain called product management, and you should give it a shot there.
Yes.
So you sat for a product management interview or placement. So how did that go?
I was very sure, and no disregards to consultants, but I was very sure I don't want to get into consulting.
Okay.
Because I felt that unless I do something with my own hand, and I wanted to be more near the execution side of things than the ideation.
You wanted to create
more. Yeah.
Just consult.
Exactly. And ISB is known as a known as a consulting school. Still is, yes. So like more than 50 to 70% people get into consulting. So I did not even sit for any of those companies. And it was a tough decision, honestly, because days are passing and you're still waiting for the right company to come. But I was very sure that I wanted to get into product management, and there were only a handful of organizations, honestly. There was Google, Yahoo, InfoEdge was there, and Make My Trip. I think these 4 companies came.
The original OG.
Exactly. Yeah. And Make My Trip, thankfully, was like the blue-eyed boy that time of the startups.
Was it already a
recently IPO'd?
IPO'd already happened.
Yeah, so 2010 they IPO'd, and I was preparing for that. I had done a lot of research around that organization and stuff, and so they hired 2 people.
So how did you prepare for that interview? I mean, there were no product management boot camps at the time.
Nothing. No, not at all. So I was just looking at it from a user. So, I used to just go to the website, try search for a lot of different use cases, think how can they make it better, more usable. There was no mobile at that point. It was all desktop. So, and tried to learn a lot through just Googling and random, because there was not enough literature, honestly, available on the internet around product management.
So was product management a thing in the US at that time at all?
It was.
Was it already coming up?
They came, like even Make My Trip came with a title of product manager. So at least, and Google was obviously established as a product management function. Yahoo would hire product managers. But in India, I think Indian-based companies, I think it was only InfoEdge and Make My Trip.
I mean, I think there were no other companies at that time.
Exactly.
If you think about
it. I think Flipkart didn't exist then, and some of these companies were like just coming
up. Getting founded, yeah. Awesome.
So that led me to Make My Trip.
Got it. So then at Make My Trip, what was your journey like? Until now, what has your journey been as a product manager? I'm sure you would have, risen up the ranks, but what's the other story? What's the story that we don't see on LinkedIn?
See, mostly I define product management into 2 kind of buckets. Either you are doing a 0 to 1 kind of work where nothing exists and you're creating something, or you're doing a 1 to 100, or people say 99 to 100, where you're doing increment, like something exists, but you're doing incremental changes.
Got it.
I think I've been fortunate enough to have worked most of my time in 0 to 1 kind of products, where nothing existed. And you had to literally think from first principles, which is a term which I find very close to myself. I relate to it. And because that's the only way I have learned product management. So because, as I said, there was no literature, nothing available, no seniors who could tell you that this is the way to do it. And that, on top of that, I was asked to manage a mobile business. I did not even own a smartphone before that. So I had a Nokia 3,000 rupee, 4,000 rupee phone. And when people were like, you have to manage the mobile business. And I was like, but I don't even understand how mobile works and stuff. So literally, I learned my way through. I was given my first phone, I remember BlackBerry. and
Acha.
that's my first experience of using internet on a phone. This was 2011, 12, and that is where I started learning things, by first principle, because I could start imagining, why would somebody book a flight on mobile? Why would somebody not book it on desktop? Because that seems to be the obvious one. But then I started getting in, understanding what are the use cases, why would somebody do this. And it's not just about replicating something which is already working for a desktop and just copying it over on a mobile, because mobile is a completely different use case. And some of the things I learned by hit and trial, some of the things I learned just by experience. Talking to customers is something which I was almost forced to do, because there was no other way I could learn it, right? So I would literally spend days into sitting at airports, observing people. How are they checking in, how are they checking out, what are they doing?
Did someone ask you to do this, or you did this
No,
by your own accord?
by my own accord, because I thought this is the only way. Because when I would go to my seniors or other people, they will also give me gyan which was like 5 years dated. They will tell me things which made sense from a desktop perspective, but nobody understood what would make sense from a mobile perspective. So that was, and I think, I don't know if that is right or wrong, but that's the only way I have learned to do product management. Even today, when I join a new organization or start doing something, the first thing I make sure is go at the ground level, like where the action is happening. I always maintain this, that products can never be created in boardrooms. And I don't know who, I have huge respect for people who can create products sitting out of boardroom, but I don't think that's a reality.
Got it.
Uh,
We'll get into more detail there. So
yeah.
after Make My Trip, what was your story?
So after Make My Trip, I moved to Nearbuy, which was transitioning from Groupon to Nearbuy. So I helped, I was working with Ankur Variku. And
So why did you decide to move?
I had already spent 4-5 years
Oh, wow,
at
okay.
Make My Trip and worked on multiple areas, etc. And Ankur spoke to me. He had this vision that, we are setting up a new organization. It's a startup. And I'd never worked for a... Make My Trip also in a way was a startup, but of course it had become
Much
like
larger, yeah.
big. So Nearby would have been that startup which I joined, and literally spending nights there, like that kind of lifestyle that I was recently married, no kids, so I could at least afford to have that kind of lifestyle where we are just slogging for through the night and delivering things in the morning and stuff like that.
And Nearby also, did you do all the customer research?
Yes, we did. I actually introduced that concept to them, because there also I had to literally hire the entire product team and tell them. They were also freshers and nobody understood. So at least there was one person in that company, which was me, who understood some bit of product management. So I started imparting that knowledge to my fellow product managers and doing this one-on-one interviews, going to restaurants and sitting there, because restaurant was a bigger business for Nearby, which is selling coupons for
Correct.
food. So literally go there, sit there, observe how people are reacting. We were the first ones who actually got rid of the paper-based vouchers, coupons, and got onto mobile.
Got it.
Because we felt that it was not a logistics problem, it was actually a psychological problem. So somebody who is carrying a coupon was not feeling very confident when he was carrying. And this is something which the user will not tell you. You have to observe.
To observe.
And they were feeling almost shy that, they are getting a 1,000 rupee buffet for 500 rupees. They are happy about it because they are getting a discount, but they don't want to be seen as somebody who is actually getting a discount. So versus when we change that to a mobile based approach, the whole body language changed. Like now, from becoming more embarrassed about using it, the users were more confident and they started acting as if they are the smarter lot, because you are paying the double the price and I'm paying half the price. See how smart am I? Because I'm carrying a cool smartphone like a coupon, and this person comes, just scans it, and it's just as if. So product management is also not just about people make it that it is a technology job. It is not a technology job. A lot of the product managers actually in the US I've heard and have known are not from technology background, but from psychology and consumer behavior and understanding, that kind of a background, who understand behavior and psychology and why do we do whatever we do in a way. So that's a deep tenet for being a good product manager.
This is a great point now, and I want to sort of delve deeper into this.
Yeah.
This is understanding in the market that you have to be an engineer to become a product manager, right?
Yeah.
That for some reason, that if you come from a bachelor's in business background or a
Yeah.
psychology background for that matter,
Yeah.
you're not cut out for a product management role in the tech industry. So how do you break that myth?
So the way I would put it is probably 50 to 70% true. Because if you are not from a technology background, it will be difficult for you, honestly, to get into. However, I have worked with a lot of product managers who have come from commerce background, economics, English honors, stuff like this, and went on to become good product managers. See, as I said, the Venn diagram, it is technology, business, and customers, right? So if you are weak in technology, of course you cannot be zero in technology. That's
You need to have a sense
you
of
need to have
curiosity
sense,
at least.
exactly. You need to understand at least how systems work. You need to be curious about, and people who are good learners, I think, even if they start with a 0 or 1 on technology, over time they mature into a 3 or a 4 on a scale of 10. But they must be very good in other two areas, which is either very good with analytics, very good with customer empathy, design centricity, or have a very deep sense of how business operates. So if you are very good, like 7 on 10, 8 on 10 on other parameters, and even a 2 on 10 on technology, of course you will have to ramp up, and but if you get to a 4 or 5 on 10 on technology, you should be able
So
to
when
get
you are
it.
interviewing product managers,
Yeah.
do you have a bias towards tech folks yourself?
I would be lying if I say I don't, but I have also hired people who are not from tech background.
Got it.
Because what I see is, the questions around technology, the typical questions which I ask is, so if you were to explain a database to your grandmom, now you should be able to explain a concept to your grandmom only when you understand that from a first principle basis. If you've just ratified that definition,
That's
then
so
you
much.
will never be able to explain this to your grandmom. And that's my favorite question for somebody who is not from technology. And if he or she is able to explain a technical concept, like say an API or a database, to your grandmom, then I think, at least from my side, it's a grow ahead. And of course, that person will have a certain bit of learning curve to come up to the place where it is desired. But it is okay, because even in product management, there are different kind of roles which are now coming up. And there are roles, of course, like if you target Google or Amazon as an organization, or Cisco or Salesforce, which are very technical sort of roles, you will never be able to make it. In fact, Google has this, at least it had when I was at ISB, that non-engineers cannot even apply.
Oh, wow.
Non-computer science engineers cannot even apply.
Yeah, even more specific.
Yeah. But I don't think if things have changed now. But there are other organizations where the focus is more on your understanding of customers, your business, your design centricity. Technology, even if you are okayish, you will still be able to make it. A lot
So
of these
let's
startups.
graph these companies out,
Yeah.
or these domains out. So if I'm not an engineer and I want to break into product management, what kind of a product manager should I become, and at what kind of a company?
Yeah.
Amongst these two, what are like my safest bets?
So you can go for a company like which is more in the consumer space, not in a pure technology sort of way. Like you have your Blinkates and your Zomato or Paytm or Make My Trip. We had a lot of people at Make My Trip also, even at Group and Nearbuy, who were not engineers. But their role was also sort of something which is more customer facing, more design oriented. You need to understand the nuances of design. You need to be able to carry out conversation with customers, with stakeholders, be very good with stakeholder management, etc. While there are certain other roles which are more technical in nature. For example, if you are handling a CRM solution, or if you're handling a backend product, then of course your ability to be good with technology, it has to be of a certain notch. But I think even organizations, when they select people, they know that if this person is not that technically adept, but has other things which will make up for him, they will put this person in a role which does not require him to be that superior in technology. So organizations are also realizing that it's not just technology which is the deal breaker. You have to be an all-rounder. On the other hand, on the contrary, I have seen a lot of engineers and people who are very high sense of technology being very bad product managers. Because of two reasons, right? See, as I'm also an engineer, but engineers actually fall in love with the solution, not with the problem. They are more in the solution space. So, you have this double diamond design theory, right? Where in first phase, you are focusing only on the problem. In the second phase, you are focusing on the solution. Engineers typically move, and I always try and stop my product managers the moment somebody utters a problem, and they will start moving into solutioning. And they've almost visualized the solution the moment you've uttered the problem.
Have you seen that Big Bang Theory episode where
Yeah.
I forget what they're trying to build, but
Ha,
they end up
exactly.
like picking out like these pipes and
Ha.
these wires, and they create something which actually does not solve the problem.
Exactly. So a lot of times people do this where and engineers are, again, at the risk of generalizing, not very good with communication. There are a lot of engineers who are not very good with stakeholder management. They just want their own space and, just give me this and I'll be able to do it. So it's not that all engineers can straight away move into product management. Similarly, not all non-engineers cannot move into product
Got
management.
it.
So
Okay, so let's talk about the engineers now.
yeah.
I feel like there is this understanding today that if I'm an engineer today, my only next step can be a product manager. I don't know how many people actually choose to sort of grow within the technology team versus move on to the product team. And is that something that I'm correct about, number one? And how do you sort of decide whether you continue in the tech side or switch over to product side?
I think what you were saying might have been true a couple of years before, or maybe 1 year before. But the recent boom in the salaries and the demand for software engineers, which I have personally seen and known in the last year or so, especially after the second phase of COVID, is remarkable. Like now I know software engineers 2 years, 3 years, and sitting on crazy salaries.
Of course.
And if you go to Bangalore and all, in fact, there was just Quora post which I was seeing, and somebody is saying that he has 4 or 5 years of experience, and he's sitting at 75 lakh LPA salary, and he's like, is this good enough for me to survive in Bangalore? And then people are saying, no, it's not good enough. You need more.
True.
So the joke is essentially, and that's true, because people are getting exorbitant salaries.
So people are choosing to stay in the tech.
There are a lot of
teams.
people now who thought that engineering might not give them that kind of a leap, especially in terms of compensation perspective. Those guys are now sticking to engineers.
Got it.
However, there were people who said that I want to move from core engineering, more towards problem solving and business side of things. Those guys might still continue to move towards product management.
So how do I decide? I mean, other than the fact that I might gravitate towards more money,
Yeah.
but how? Assuming the money is the same as a
Yeah,
product VP and as a engineering VP,
Yeah.
how do I know which one I am a better fit for? Say I'm a considerably good engineer.
Yeah. So one thing you should realize that what deep inside, are you more passionate about solving something through technology? If that is your core strength and that is what interests you, then I think you should stick to technology. Whereas if you are more of a person who wants to solve a business problem with the use of technology.
But how do you look inside? I get that. I mean,
Yeah.
I get that answer,
Yeah.
right? And it sounds obvious. But
Yeah.
how do I find out? How do I ask myself that question and be honest about it?
I think there are times, for example, when I go to my own instance, which I said, right? If you are solving something and you are unhappy about just solving it without actually knowing the cause of it, then I think you're more of a product guy. But if there are people who are very happy just with solving or cracking a particular algorithm, and they're like, I'm fine. It does not matter if it made any impact in the life of anybody else or not. The fact that I have cracked this algorithm and I have delivered a superior code which is running at certain efficiency, that itself gives you a certain high. Then you are a sort of engineering guy. And plus there are other things like for you to become a good product manager, you need to have decent communication skills, your ability to lead people and an organization together, your ability to understand business, your ability to empathize with the users. There are a lot of other things which I think intuitively you would know that do you like that sort of a job or not, or you're more happy just giving me, just tell me what to do. So if you are more focused on how and less on why, then you're more of a technology guy. If you're more focused on why and less of how, then you're more of a product guy.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into this, right? Let's say I want to become CEO or I want to become an entrepreneur and I'm an engineer today. What would you advise me? Should I try to transition into a product role? Because I see that most of the CEOs today are product folks, right? I see very few, CTOs becoming CEOs, but I do see CPOs becoming CEOs.
Yeah.
So again, first of all, is that assumption or is that judgment correct? And number two, what would you advise somebody who wants to?
Again, I think there are both examples out there. I'm not sure if Sundar Pichai was a product manager or a techie.
He was a product.
I think he was a techie, and then he moved into product, and then eventually became the CEO. But this guy, Parag, the CEO
That's
of
true.
Twitter,
Yeah.
is a out and out techie and is not a product guy at all.
Mm.
So I think there are both examples, but typically I think if you are in a business which is more consumer focused, more business related, not a tech product. So Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, I would call as technology products.
Mm.
If you want to become CEOs of those companies, you can probably become the CEO even when you are a techie.
Mm.
While if you have to manage a product, if you have to manage a business, which is where technology is just for support, and technology is not the
It's
the
tech
main
enabled,
mainstay.
not the
Yeah.
tech itself. Mm.
So then I think you have to move to the product side eventually,
Mhm.
because and I'm sure even as CEOs even today, Sundar Pichai, even whether he was a product guy or a technology guy, his 80% job will be to manage people, right? Today in today's world. So I think the first thing has to be you have to be comfortable being a leader and being with people and very very good with people, because that I think is the number one priority for any of the CEOs, right? And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, fair.
Yeah.
So, one thing which you said in the beginning was that you've always been a 0 to 2,
0 to 1.
0 to 1, sorry, product manager.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, if I'm an aspiring product manager, what kind of companies I should look at? Should I be looking at startups that are at very early stage, which are doing 0 to 1 kind of work? Or should I think about, maybe aiming for a Cisco or Microsoft where I'm doing the 99 to 100 work? Where will I learn more? Um, where are my growth opportunities better, in a sense?
I would say that if you do not have any background in product, go for a bigger sort of company, because it gives you that kind of soft launch, and you will be surrounded by people who understand, who would have done product management before. It also gives you that kind of environment where you can flourish. If versus in a startup, you will just be thrown in the deep end, and you will have to learn to swim. It's not that you will not be able to. There are of course different kind of learnings in a startup. But if I were to pick one, if I were to suggest this to my younger brother or sister,
Okay.
I will say go, if possible, go for a bigger brand, which will at least learn the best from the best. That what are the best practices around product management? What is the right way to do user research? What is the right way to think about a product? That kind of bandwidth and leeway you will get only in established organization. And then maybe move back to a startup, like after you have
Got it.
learned the tricks and trades of
Got
stuff.
it. And there's another thing you mentioned in the beginning, which was different kinds of product management roles.
Yeah.
Right. There are product owners, and there are APMs, and there are
Yeah.
PMs, and there are
Yeah.
technical PMs,
Yeah.
and there are design focused PMs. So could you lay out that landscape for us?
Sure. In fact, I had done a podcast on this also
Okay, wow,
one time,
okay.
which was different kinds of PMs. Very simple. There is this misconception around product manager and product owner. So product manager is what we are talking about. Product owner is actually a subset of what product manager does. It's actually a role which was created out of when Scrum was being conceptualized in 2001 and stuff. Agile Manifesto was being written. And there they created this role of a product owner, which is supposed to be the leader who is creating user stories, backlog, and helping the development team work on a certain product, which is a sort of a limited role focused only towards the technology and the development team. Whereas a product manager is a bigger role, which is more a strategic role. He or she has to take care of marketing, operations, and the full product. There are other kind of roles which are now emerging, which is the most popular ones are product marketing managers. So product marketing managers are not product managers, but they are mostly looking at evangelizing a particular product. You see these kind of roles in Google, Microsoft, Cisco kind of companies where you have a product and you want to sell this to, it's more like a B2B product, not a B2C product, like Google Maps or Google Ads. You will have a product marketing manager who will sell this to the clients. Like organizations like yours, there will be somebody from Google who might come and try and pitch this product to you. So they understand the
But
product.
he'd be the sales guy, right?
Not the sales guy. He's actually a product marketing manager. Sales guys are also there, but these guys are slightly differently. So they actually strategize also, like which market to go, which are the clients we should look for. They will actually prepare material for the sales guy. So maybe the product marketing manager might not come for a meeting face to face, but they are the ones who are behind the sales guys and even the pre-sales guys who are just helping them figure out.
They're sort of the consultant.
Yeah, internal consultants. And they are sort of the bridge between the sales team and the product teams. So Google also wants to just let the product managers focus squarely on users
The core
and the
product.
product. All selling part and other paraphernalia is handed over to the
So there's a
product marketing
product
manager.
manager who builds the the interface of, let's say, the Google Maps
Yes.
app.
Yeah.
But then how Google Maps can be used at Uber
Exactly.
is
Will be
probably a product
manager.
marketing manager who's strategizing how the Maps APIs
Yeah.
can be optimized for Uber.
Yeah.
And the sales guy is going and doing the final pitching and
Exactly.
selling. Got it.
Exactly. He's more of a creative guy who is also thinking about creating some videos and what our channels should we promote this, etc., etc.
Got
So
it.
that's a PMM.
So PMM, it feels it would be a great fit for someone who's a non-technical,
Yes.
who wants to be
because this guy does not require that much of technology.
Hmm.
But he needs to be very good with design, communication, and other things.
So he's essentially a sales guy married to a PM guy.
Yes, sort of. Yeah.
Got it. Are those roles coming up in India? I mean, I see
Yes.
fewer sort of open JDs for that.
Yeah, PMMs are not as popular as the product manager's role, but they are mostly in the bigger sort of
Companies.
these FANG companies, and Cisco I know, Microsoft I know, Google definitely has a lot of product marketing managers. And then there are roles which are growth product managers or product growth managers. They are mostly working on growth ideas, growth hackers, right? They are assisting product managers, but product manager is working on 20%, 10%, 5% improvement. A product growth manager is working on 2x, 3x, 4x. And he's looking at wacky ideas like, why don't we integrate with a different company altogether? For that will open a new channel for. Why don't we add a new line of business altogether? So he's like,
he's not thinking of NPS, he's thinking of growth.
Growth. That's his square. That's the number one metric which he's chasing for. And those people also may not have that bit of technology understanding, but mostly very deep business and partnership and alliances and how business works and how can you scale things.
These are the hustlers.
These are the hustlers, yes. So that role also, that is, by the way, even more popular than a PMM role these days.
Yeah, I would.
So companies like Paytm, I know, even in my organization, we have product growth managers. Make My Trip would have it. Zomato would have it. A lot of these companies would have it.
Very interesting. Okay. So let's come back to the core product manager.
Yeah.
Let's say he has 100 hours, right, in his pocket. How does he spend those 100 or she spend those 100 hours, right? And divide it between stakeholder interaction, tech, wireframing, analytics, all the various job functions. If you can divide that 100 hours, what is a typical PM doing?
I'll break it into two. One, I'll talk about a typical PM who is actually managing a product on his own, and the other one who are like group product manager and above, who are also managing product managers. So there will be slightly different than this. So I'll answer the first one first, which is a product manager who's owning a product. An ideal distribution should be technology and UX and Scrum, etc. should be like 40% of his day-to-day job, including user story writing and daily stand-ups and Scrum meetings and clarifying any doubt. Another 20 to 30% should be around looking at data and analysis and whatever we have done, what has been the impact, or whatever we need to do. What is the hypothesis behind it, and talking to product analysts and just getting these data, and the rest I would say
30%.
around 10% should be in and when I say data can also be like numeric as well as when you're hearing customers feedback, etc. That's also that's also kind of data, and then rest will be your stakeholder management and your speaking to marketing people, business people. Somebody has a complaint, somebody has something else. So because you are the one central point where everybody is kind of converging. Your marketing people, your operation people, everybody will have something to say or an input to give to you or something to ask. And you will see yourself in middle of 5 different meetings throughout the day. So it becomes difficult for the product managers also to
the
prioritize.
Tech meeting and the design meeting and the business meeting and the growth
exactly.
meeting. Okay.
And then you have to, so that is unavoidable because you're the one who has.
So let's keep 20% for stakeholder management.
Yeah.
40% is working with tech, working on user stories, Scrum, all of that. And the other 40% or 30 to 40%, as you said, is around looking at the data, right?
Data and customers and insights, basically.
Got it. I'm more interested in the first 40%. Can you break down that further? What does working in the tech side of things mean for a product manager? You mentioned a lot of words, Scrum and all of that. So
user
could you break,
stories.
yes, user stories. Could you just break down that for us?
So the way I say is a product manager is always looking ahead. Like product manager is always working for the future. Mostly, he should be, because when the developers are writing code for the current sprint, he's writing user stories for the sprint which is going to come. So N+1 or N+2. So his most of the work is actually going into what is the next set of things which he's going to create, clarifying those, just writing specifications for what the product is going to serve, working closely with the design team to get the final design out, talking to the engineering managers and others to figure out if there is any dependency on any other third application, if there is any API which has to be written before that. So he's figuring out all this. He's just creating all the raw materials, which is when the sprint will start. Sprint is nothing but it is a 7-day or a 14-day kind of a sprint, in which we pick up certain requirements, and as a team they just
Execute them.
execute it. So it's the product manager's responsibility to create the raw material for the sprint to begin, because everybody else will just come on that day and listen to the product manager and start executing. But if suppose the design is not ready, or an API is not ready, or something needs to be has not been thought of, then the sprint will go for a toss.
Got it.
And the product manager is the one who is responsible for this. And he is working all those 40% of the time to making sure that whatever user stories, because see, if you are going to execute something, you also need to maybe speak to the business stakeholders or the customer, or get a sign off from, like for example, when I was with life insurance company, we needed to get a sign off from IRDA, or say the marketing people will say that I have not approved this content. Designers and developers will just take whatever you give to them, just put it there, click the button, and it goes live, right? It is not their headache to make sure that this has been approved or not. And once you and if it fires, if there was some issue, I think then the CEO will directly ask the product managers and not the
What's up? Yeah.
developers, right?
Got it. Very cool. All right. I think we covered a lot of ground actually. So, I've always sort of seen kids line up for these PM interview workshops and these PM boot camps and all of these things, right? And I wonder whether one can actually be trained to become a product manager, or is it something that you get as talent inborn, essentially, right? Stakeholder management, as you mentioned, right? Or talking to customers. Are these actually skills, or are you just like born with it, or you just have an aptitude for it? Can you essentially train to become a product manager? Let me put it that way.
See, I think some of the harder skills can definitely be trained, because if it's about the product owner role, right? So you need to write good user stories, you need to have a sense of, you need to understand analytics, you need to understand technology a little. These all things are trainable. But when it comes to the software aspects of things, like bordering on leadership skills, right? Your ability to communicate, your ability to take everybody together, not lose your cool when things are going south. I think those things are difficult to train. Software skills typically have been difficult to train anyways. And especially in this role, I have always maintained is that I would have taken like 500, more than 500,000 interviews of product managers. I have actually rejected more people on softer skills background than on harder skills, because I know that if this person does not understand technology, he can be trained. If he does not understand technologies, but if he's not good with communication, and when I say communication, it is two ways, right? Being a good listener as well as being able to communicate. I have asked something to the candidate, and he's responding something else. That shows that he's not even listening to what I'm saying, and he's just prepared an answer which is just throwing at you. That means that he will not be able to make a good product manager. So I have actually rejected more people on soft skills than on hard skills, especially when it comes to product management. I don't think there will be any other function, at least I know, where people are getting rejected on softer skills than on harder skills. Whereas the popular view is that product management is a hard skill function, which I at least disagree.
So what are some of the questions you ask in your PM interviews?
Okay.
If you can divulge.
Yeah, I can, because I keep changing that anyways, right?
Sure.
So first question I said, right, the can and mom question. My other questions are more around So I give them a product which I first understand what is the background and what do they do. So I'm like, okay, how do you travel? For example, he's like, I travel with Uber, or what is it that you use? He says Google Maps, or one of those popular products which everybody
Correct.
uses. And then what I ask them is to recreate that product with a certain constraint. So for example, I'll say you have to you are the product manager for Uber, but now you have to create Uber for elderly people, like people above 60 years of age. This actually tests the fundamental thinking. So how do you approach this problem? Do you directly jump onto solution and start giving, I will do this, I will do that? Or do you first understand, empathize with what an elderly person needs are? You may not be an elderly person, but you will never be the user yourself. But you have to almost mimic what the user will think. So people who start questioning that, or at least start brainstorming with me, saying an elderly person might have these issues. He might have issues in seeing the font. He might have issues with using technology. He might have issues in something else, right? He might have also accessibility issues. So not just the physical product, as in the app,
App.
but the product. Like car itself is also a product. Like the car will
Correct.
reach his house. And what if he is not able to
Get in the
get
car.
in the car himself? So he maybe needs the driver to be informed upfront that the driver has to come out and assist the person. If he's able to think on all these lines, that is where his empathetic skills and his ability to design, etc., comes into play.
Can you give me another example of another app and a constraint?
Yeah. So I also ask sometimes physical products, because physical products are also products. It's not necessarily that you are only creating digital products. So I will say you have to create an alarm clock for a blind person. Or you have to, one question which I have asked is, how do you create world's best? Like Apple is going to create a park, like a physical park where
Okay.
kids play. Knowing Apple, and you are the product manager for Apple, and they have asked you to think about it. Now tell me, how will you create, what is your vision of the world's best park which Apple is creating? Now it is like throwing somebody completely off the guard, right? Because nobody is prepared for these kind of questions. This is where you start judging the person on fundamental basis. Like how is it thinking? Like when you think of a park, you first look at a user segment. Like, is this park going to be used by elderly people, for children, for couples, for what is this park meant
Think
for?
of the personas first.
Exactly. And then if you are going to say, I'm going to create something for everybody, then of course that doesn't.
That's not a good answer.
Exactly. So the sharp people will actually say, I will pick up this use case. And they will say, I will pick up children. And then you will say, what is the problem which exists with the current parks, right? What are the pain points? What is it that the current parks are not solving? And then they start moving in that direction, which will lead to the ideal solution. Otherwise, people will they will directly move to the solution. As I said, right? Engineers mostly working on the solution space. They're like, they will create this park, they will put some grease, they will put some trees, or they will just start moving in the solution without understanding what is the problem which you are trying to solve. So even for a alarm clock, right? What is the limitation which a blind person has? He cannot see, but what can he do? He can touch, he can hear, he can smell. So do you have the ability to invoke these other sensory perceptions? Just eyesight is not there, but everything else is there. So how do you leverage some of these things? It will show his creativity, and but everything has to start from empathy.
Got it.
That you understand the user well.
Got it. So, one thing I wanted to explore was that, you mentioned that product manager is always working in the future. He's working for the next release, right? And you have to think long term that, how this product will mature over time, all of that, right? But as a CEO or as a head of sales or someone who's responsible for the numbers every day, I'm thinking that they probably want results now, right?
Yeah.
Is that a tussle you have to balance between? Is that
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because that is something which we struggle with. At least I have struggled with every day, because, and you're right, because the business folks, or the non-product folks, I would say, even the technology folks at times, they're just struggling with day in and day out, like every day. Like the developer has to write the code for today, because he has to submit it by the end. The business folks and the marketing folks are struggling with the leads which are getting generated. So they have the targets, like they're looking at month end, right? and the target you're still falling short by 20%, 30%. So they will try and push you towards taking calls which we believe are not, from a customer perspective, the right decisions. So it's a tough situation to be in, honestly, because as I said, product manager is not just for the customer; it is equally for the business and technology. But at times, we have to take those difficult calls and difficult decisions because there is nobody who is representing customers, honestly, in the organization. Businesses obviously have their own targets, technology have their own KRAs. You are the only one. So the quote I have is, product managers become the one function which is not represented in a room. So if I'm having a discussion with a business, I become the technology. If I'm having a discussion with the technology, I become the business. And if I'm having a discussion with both of them, I become the customer, because customer is almost never there in the room. So there have been times when the business teams will push you for doing something which may not be correct from a customer perspective. For example, I'll give you examples. We have to get to a certain number of leads, and they will say, as soon as the customer, like the moment he lands on the page, just ask him for his phone number
Yeah.
and ask him to
That's what I
submit.
would want as a CEO.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Get the lead.
And we are like, but that is not the right experience, because the customer has just landed, and let him explore the website and let him see what all things are there. But the marketing team will always be like, no, we want the numbers, because the what happens if the customer just exits
Yeah.
and you have no way, like no
That's
footprints.
$600 gone down
Yeah,
the drain.
exactly.
Yeah.
And but from a, because we represent the customer in a way, so we always maintain this, that let him have the right kind of experience, because if it was not going to convert anyways, right, then even if you call them, he's not going to convert.
And I
But
guess
if you
this is where a lot of the stakeholder management we spoke about earlier
exactly,
comes in, right?
exactly,
If you're not able to manage this with the
yeah, with the business,
business, then I
yeah,
mean it's not going to work.
exactly. And you need to be respected by the business, that these guys are doing the right thing for the organization overall. We as business folks, and I've had this kind of candid offline discussion with the business leader, and they understand that you are also doing your job in a way, because if you don't fight for this, then business will just go and
No, but like I mean, I've heard a lot of my my lot of people in marketing team or sales team be like, yeah, whenever we go to the tech team or the product people to ask for a new feature, they say कि 6 महीने बाद बनेगा, 3 महीने बाद बनेगा, अभी नहीं, and then they become very frustrated and they expect me to tell the product people कि no, prioritize this. So I mean, it's hard to balance this, right?
it is very hard, but I don't know. It's never that always that the product manager will say that it will happen after 3 months or 6 months, because we have to maintain
We
a
have to ask
certain.
the salespeople.
I know, we have to maintain a certain decorum of this is where the roadmap and the thematics actually go in, that we declare upfront that this is going to be the theme of this quarter. And these are all the things which are going to work on. Having said that, it doesn't mean that if the business situation has changed, something dramatic has happened. Agile, as the word says, means that you are flexible enough. So if there is something which is of higher priority, I have never seen a product team saying no.
But who decides the priority then?
Of course, the product manager. But the product manager, and there are different frameworks, by the way. We talk about all this in the
But
class.
every salesperson thinks that his feature, the one that his client needs, is the most important.
Yeah, they do. And this is where the product manager has to come up with a common currency for each of these things. So you may say that by doing this, and my question is, so there are different, like there's RISE framework, there are other frameworks in which how, like, reach, impact, what is the confidence you have to do this, and what is the effort which is required. So you say, how many people do you think will it impact? They'll be like 10,000 people. What is the impact of on each of these X percentage? And then it's actually maths, honestly, if you say. Apart from the other ones where it is purely customer experience, which is slightly
good to have.
superfluous and not very easy to measure, other things, I think we can bring it down to a common currency and then equate everything, put it in a descending order, and then do a brutal prioritization. But it's not as easy as you cannot objectify everything. There are certain things which you think is the right thing for the customer, and you still want to do it, and the business will have their own priorities. And this is, if I had the answer, then of course, I will write that, and
sense.
I'll be a billionaire.
And final question, and we'll wrap up after this. A lot of the kind of work that the product manager does sounds like what in yesteryears was done by a project manager. Right. Have those two roles essentially become one, or are there still two different functions in companies?
Completely different, I would say. And see, project by definition has a finite time, right? It will start on a certain date, end on a certain date. There is a flyover which is being constructed. This is the cost. These are the people who are going to do it. The 2nd of February it will start. It should end in 2024 March. That is a project. Product is ever evolving. Product never has a end date that now Amazon.com has stopped, right? It will never happen, right? Within a product, you might have certain projects. So projects are very clear. Like once you have defined what has to be done, you have sanctioned the budget, you have allocated the resources, you have defined the timeline. Then a project manager can go and execute that. But a product manager is a very different role. Like product manager is actually telling the organization what to do. Project manager will never be able to
No,
tell.
but in terms of managing Jira, in terms of managing user stories,
Yeah,
in terms of all of that.
so I think project management as a function or as a concept is very integral to product managers. So product managers have to be good project managers. But that doesn't mean project management is equal to product management, right? Because as product managers, we need to be good project managers. We need to understand, we need to make sure that dependencies are sorted. We need to highlight something if something is going wrong. We need to make sure that this is being done in the defined time and scope. But that is only one part of what we do. So maybe 20% of what we do.
There's a 20% of the first 40% bucket,
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly. It's project
Got it.
management. Yes.
Awesome. On that note, Shailendra, we're gonna wrap up.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so much for coming in. Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, totally.
This was I think we covered a lot of things. We covered different kinds of product managers. We also discussed different companies.
Yes.
What is good for who can become a product manager, who should not become a product manager. So I feel it's quite a width that we have covered today.
Yes, I totally enjoyed it.
Any question that you wish I'd asked you that I haven't?
No, I think you've covered most.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much again.
Thank you.